Hello everyone, today I am back with another tutorial. Today I'm going to be focusing on how to make a leaning book block. I did one in a previous video where I just did one book, but now I'm going to be doing three. So I have a piece of fabric here. It is 16 inches high and 6 inches wide. The width will depend on how much you want your books to lean, so you can cut it a little bit narrower if you want. I figured I would try 6 inches and see what it would look like. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to decide if I want my books leaning to the left or if I want them leaning to the right, because if we want them leaning to the right, then we want to cut this strip at a diagonal from that corner to that corner. But if we want them going leaning to the left, then we want to cut the other way. And as you can see, my book pieces that I made, they aren't really the same height or anything, but that's fine because we are going to be trimming everything up later on. And I do end up making a mistake on this block, but don't worry, I will show you how I fix it. So I'm just going to cut my piece of fabric here on the diagonal, and then I am going to sew my books in between there, and then we'll see if we can make this work. I have done it before and it worked out very nicely, so I'm hoping it'll work out again. I just did it with the one book. I learned this method from Missouri Star Quilts. I've watched their video in the past and I really liked it, and now I figured I would make my own video and show you how I did it. So I'm just going to take this piece here and then lay it right sides together with my books. And you don't have to worry about matching your ends up or anything like that because, like I said, we have lots of extra space for trimming. So I'm just going to go sew that on. This block is going to be for my library quilt. I'm making it for my sister. It's Pat Sloan's pattern and it's in her book, Holiday Hoopla. She's doing a sew along right now. The links to her YouTube and her Facebook are in the description box below. So if you want to join in, feel free to follow her and share your progress on Facebook. So I have that piece done, and now I'm just going to take this piece and lay it right sides together. Again, not worrying about matching up my ends or anything like that, just making sure that everything's nice and flush so that I can sew a 1/4 inch seam, and then we're going to come back and trim everything up. All right, I am ready to trim this block, and this quilt has different size blocks, so you have lots of options here because you might need to add or trim off to make it the right size. But for mine, I will end up adding, I believe, because I can make my blocks 3 different sizes, so that makes it a lot easier making a block like this. But yeah, so here I'm just trimming it and then just trying very hard to make sure that I don't screw up, but it's Sara, so of course I screwed up. And I can't believe I did this because it was just so dumb, and it took me a while to realize that I had even made this mistake. But when you're trimming off the side over here where the book is going to be leaning against something else, you want to leave a 1/4 inch, no more, no less. That way when you sew it to the next block, it's going to line up really nicely. And I believe this is where I finally realized that I had cut my block a 1/4 inch too short. I needed it a 1/4 inch taller. So we're going to fix that. All I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make another book and sew it so that it's laying down on the bottom. And then I'm just going to add a border on the side there or from the background, and then it'll all work out. So I made myself another book piece, and I'm just going to sew that to the bottom there and then trim it off. And then it's just going to look like those books are stacked on top of another book. See, easy fix. And then that way I will have lots of trimming space. I could either choose to trim all of it from the top or trim the book a little bit narrower. I was panicking for a second, thinking I was going to have to remake this whole block, but it all ended up working out in the end. Here I'm just making sure that I do have lots of space. And then I'm just going to sew on a piece of background fabric on that side just to make my block the size that I need. And I have some of these 2.5 inch strips that are the same color as my background, which is going to be perfect. I'm just going to cut a strip and sew that on the side there, and then I will come back and we'll trim this block up to the correct size this time. I will make sure. All right, here it is. It's looking a little bit wonky. I've got pieces sticking over everywhere, but that's okay because now we are going to trim it up, and I'm going to make sure that I don't cut anything on that side because that side is exactly where I need it. I don't want to trim any more off of there. So I'm just going to line my ruler up with that edge because I know that that's a nice straight cut. And then I'm just going to trim off the other 3 sides. And I decided that I'm going to make my bottom book a little bit narrower. So I'm going to trim off a bit off the top and then a little bit off the bottom. Just, I don't know, it's just, I wanted a little bit more background on the top. I didn't want it to look like it was all the way up to the next shelf because once I add the shelving strips in, it might look a little bit weird. And if you found this video helpful at all, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that thumbs up button. That really helps my channel grow, and I do appreciate it very much. All right, now I'm just going to trim it down to the exact size that I need, and then this block will be done, and I can add it to my design wall with the rest of them. Here I'm just making sure or deciding which size I want, because like I said, this pattern has 3 different options. I am following this block size patterns, but I'm kind of going off on my own when it comes to each block design. I wanted a bit more variety in my quilt, and I figured I would start posting these kind of videos because if anybody else is making this quilt and they wanted to know how to make these changes, it might be helpful to them. All right, I have this block all trimmed up, and I'm actually really liking the way it turned out. So maybe it was a good thing that I made that mistake, and now I have that extra little book on the bottom there. Yeah, so here it is with the rest of the blocks that I've made so far. I'm really making some progress on this quilt. I have 2 more blocks up there. That video will be coming up soon too. I really hope you enjoyed this and thank you so much for watching.